Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. And as you well know, I always introduce these podcasts in the same way. These are my favorite podcasts. These are the podcasts where I bring on the people that I have been supporting, helping them help themselves, which is the beauty of all of this. And I would like to say a huge welcome to Anne Marie.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Anne Marie. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful, apart from this tickly cough, which we spoke about. But yes, very well, thank you.
Good,
So
good.
today, obviously, people that maybe have been listening have listened back through the back catalogue, and I do urge you to listen to those other podcasts of people that were maybe in a similar position and sharing their story, sharing the journey that they've been on, the success that they've had, just so that you can feel a little bit inspired of going, you know what, I'm not stuck. There is a way out, even though I may have tried everything. So if I can offer that little bit of a lighthouse in the dark, here it is right now. So what I want to really do, Anne Marie, is with any decent story, is take us back, take us back to the start. So you reached out. I guess we could start with that is like, how you reached out and why you reached out.
So it was back in May, I think, last year. I'd followed you, I'd worked with you previously, and then I'd followed you just generally podcasts, information, and I thought, enough's enough. I need to do something. I need to write to Ian and say, hello, need some help. Um, because obviously I'd got to that place where it wasn't in a good place. Food was was it no, what do you call it? A demon. Wasn't good in body shape, body health, well-being, just generally not good in my own skin. So it took us a week probably to go send an email or a message, and then I did. And then I remember our first call. I was sitting somewhere in Netherlands, I think. I'd been on a work trip on my way back, and we had our first chat. So yeah, so it just followed you, and then thought, right, I need to do something about it. So picked up the phone or text. I can't remember which I did, text or email, one or the other.
Some form of communication went down.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And I think I was sitting in a lay-by waiting for my wife from the airport at the time, which
Yeah,
was, a very kind of aeroplane abroad theme went on. But
absolutely.
but that's the thing. Often a lot of people, I'm on their radar, and I think you yourself never really had any interaction with us other than the initial message that I got
Mm-hmm.
through, like a bit of a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yep, correct.
Was there any particular reason for that, do you think?
No, I think I'm just humbly wandering along with life and listening to things and then thinking I should do something and then you don't and then it goes to the back of your mind and then you listen again and think just do it. Because I think you put off and then all of a sudden something just clicks and you think, do you know what? Enough's enough. Just message. What's the harm in messaging and where do you go from there? So yeah.
Absolutely. So those that are listening, at any point, like my inbox is open, and I will leave things in the show notes if you do want to get in contact. But like it does just start very kind of like, I guess, informal. Like I guess you could explain like how that process felt for you. Like, I can imagine that there is a lot of skepticism and doubt and worry. How was that phase of kind of maybe beginning that process for you?
I think it was fine because obviously I knew you previously, so it was good just to reflect where I am now, where I was then,
Yeah,
in terms of life, work, traveling a lot, long hours, not sleeping, not happy in my own skin, just feeling really down and out with myself, to be honest. And I think it's just kind of sharing where you are, where I was then, what was the not the problem, just yeah, this is life, this is what's going on. How do I make some changes to make things better for the future? So it was just kind of a nice conversation, sharing where we were. and then we started the journey, and you asked, different types of questions. What do you want out of it? Various things, and then we started the conversation and all the different topics that went along with that.
Mhm. If we could go back to like your history with all of this, because I know you'd said, and full disclosure, we have kind of worked together, I would say probably in my infancy
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
as a
absolutely.
kind of a health practitioner when I was a personal trainer. And in many ways, like the reason I've very much transitioned to who I am and where I am right now was because I kind of didn't feel fully aligned with the overall cultural tone of what the fitness and diet industry represented.
Mhm.
Um, so, by the way, if I contributed to any of the issues as the previous version of me, I do apologize. Um, because, like, listen, the heart, the intention was always there, but
Yeah,
life has taught me otherwise, and
yeah.
of course, personal experience. So, where were you? Like, where has this journey stemmed from in your life?
So I guess it stems from, you're always on some sort of diet, or you're always on some 6 week challenge to kind of lose weight, do a load of exercise, then you're in slimming world, then you're not, then you are, then you just go through bouts of probably emotional eating as most of us do. But then it just kind of spirals from there. And then I think I got to the point where I thought I'm the heaviest I've ever been and I'm not comfortable. So what am I doing that what do I need to do to change some habits, get into a new way of thinking to make things better for the future? So you're also looking after yourself for the future and your future years to come, and you're not continuing in the same vein where you don't feel good and you get bigger or whatever that may be. So, you've done Slimmer World. Like I say, I've done that many 6 weeks challenges, but yeah, it works for a short period of time, but then you end up going backwards. You haven't built in those habits to make things improve.
Hmm.
And it's
It-
not necessarily, as I have learned on this journey, it's not all about food.
Well, hey, this is what this educational podcast hopefully is all about.
Absolutely.
That looking in the wrong area, and that's, I mean,
Mhm.
we'll get onto that, but ironically, this is the thing that I find when I'm working with people, and especially women, that they've almost all of their life done like all of the challenges and all of the
Yeah.
boot camps, all of the groups, all of the kind of the the fads, and they've worked them the way through the entire list.
Different ones,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then the irony is, like, as you say, it's kind of like there is that mini like hit of dopamine of like, hey, this is working until, of course, it doesn't work. And unfortunately, the typical thing is I hear too often is I'm the heaviest I've ever been. Um, over a time scale,
Mm-hmm.
how long's that been?
I'm not disclosing my age, but you could say 15 years or more, even. It can be that length. When you think, if I look back, yeah, on and off
Yeah,
for that period of time. Yeah,
I mean, it is what it is. Listen,
is what it is. Absolutely.
I think sometimes when people are in their like 20s and all of that,
Yeah.
they kind of just, you don't think about this, do you?
No, it's not
It's,
that important then.
yeah.
It's
And
all
and
about
the
going out having fun, having a life,
yeah. But again,
and
it's
then life
sometimes when you
changes.
even when you're dieting, when people are dieting, they're not thinking about like the long-term implications
Mhm.
because they've never experienced the long-term implications. So when you experience the long-term implications time and time again over, say, a 15-year period, you then start going, hmm, if I do that again,
Yeah,
what's the long-term implications? Because I've done it five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 times or
yeah,
over this course of time. Um, so it's like, what do I do? Where do I
yeah.
turn? What
Uh-huh.
help do I need? And what maybe damage have I done uh, to my body, to my mind, and all of those sorts of things. So over that period of time, there was 15 years, there was obviously numerous kind of failed attempts. How did all of that kind of leave you feeling?
I guess early years, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, it is what it is. But then when you get a bit older, you kind of like, it's not working. And again, it demoralizes you. You just get a bit stuck in a rut and you're like, oh, nothing's worked. Here I go again, back to the same cycle. And then I kind of think, oh, what am I not doing? What's the motivation? What's stopping it? So you kind of question all the things you do, but you just kind of get a bit downhearted that nothing's really working, and you kind of like, well, I'm doing something wrong, or you get yourself in a bit of a downward spiral, for want of a better word.
And you mentioned earlier, like the kind of the emotional eating.
And for me, it's not, I'm not a binge eater, but if I'm stressed or something's going on, you're busy, you've got long hours, you pick at things that are you just kind of think, I'll have a pack of crisps here, or I'll have a, you know what I mean? You kind of, I'm not a one that just kind of binge, but I'm also kind of wary of that something going on in my life, and it's like, oh, that's the easiest thing to eat, instead of thinking what's the root cause of the issue and what can I do about it, rather than thinking why is food the optimum to solve the problem all the time, when it's not necessarily is. Yeah, it might make you feel better, but in the end you kind of think, oh, wish I hadn't eaten that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, all of that, like those negative feelings after the initial feeling of kind of it typically outweighs it, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Where, if in terms of reflection, like if you never figured, like kind of resolved this in such a way, what do you think would have been the long-term implications? Like, what do you think would have happened if the cycle had continued?
Probably just in that same downward spiral, probably put more weight on and just be stuck in that rut of kind of not being happy, not being self-confident with yourself. I think that's one of the things I said when I started. I just don't feel confident in my own skin, wearing nice clothes, or I'm always thinking, oh, I've got to buy bigger clothes, all of that kind of thing. So your self-confidence get knocked, but you just continue in that cycle. So for me, it was kind of, I don't want to keep doing that. And I also don't want to become too unhealthy that it then causes either medical issues or whatever else in the future, which you don't really want to have when you're getting older. And for me, it was kind of like, right, what do you do to get yourself on a better, even playing field? So that's what I did. I thought it's a good idea to start where you are and then move on that journey.
And you've already mentioned like all of the things that you'd tried, which might be more the kind of a lot of the commercial stuff. But also maybe it was any attempts of like kind of self-imposed rules, like, right, I'm, like I'm being good, or I'm
I'm being
removing.
good. I'm talking to myself. I'll be good today, and I'll not eat that today, and then I'll have salads today. You know, it was kind of talking to yourself in that stupid language of when you go out for a meal. Oh, I'll only have this, or I'm not going to have that because that's not very healthy. Or if you were on some sort of diet, it's like, can't have that because that's too many points, too many sins, too many calories. So it was all that kind of negative language towards yourself of you can't do this and you can't do that. Mm.
And how much space, like, how much like bandwidth did you feel this all like took up for you?
It takes up a lot of bandwidth because even when you talk with your friends and everybody's all on some sort of diet or some sort of health kick, and we all get into some of these conversations around, oh, what are you eating today? Why are we eating that? We should have this. So it kind of you get into that negative spiral, all of you together as well, when you're all doing some sort of scenario or some sort of course.
And I think that's one of the things that we'd spoken about quite a lot, is like the how noticeable all of that stuff kind of really was when you were kind of like separating yourself from that culture.
It was interesting because you're talking your friend's circle and they're all talking about what they can eat and various things. And then I started thinking it's so interesting after the conversations with you where the mindset is. And even to the conversation of, I'm happy for them because that's the journey they want to go on. But I then kept saying to you, do we really need to have to talk about don't have this or don't have that, because at the end of the day, it's food. And if you want to have something, have it. Nothing's off limits as long as you're in a good space to do it. But also kind of like, oh, I must go to I was always kind of like, I must go to the gym, and I haven't got the gym, it's an issue. And for me, it's all about movement and physical activity. So it was kind of very interesting. And then I think we also talked about social media and the channels that you have on either your Instagram or your Facebook. And it's so interesting of the things that you've just been so accustomed to that come through on your news feeds that are really different to what you and I were talking about. So there was obviously all those, all these people in these kind of, as I say, boot camps, 21 days and you get your money back, all those kind of things and discussions in your feed. So all of that just swarms through your news feed all the time. And it's kind of thinking, how do you start to, that we talked about, how do you start to block some of that out so you get more into that positive rhythm? So people like different kind of athletes and stuff I've started to follow, like Jessica Ennis Hill or Laura Steadman, people like that, just to, because they're on a different, they're not shoving all the other negative stuff in your face. It's all kind of positive, reinforcement of different things they're doing. So it's looking at how do you even, when you follow things, how do you switch in your social channels to start looking at that differently as well?
Especially if you spend time like a lot of people do on social media. You are curating and feeding your internal like kind of algorithm a certain message, and that if you are constantly bombarded with unachievable bodies, often bodies that are a result of, say, could be drugs, could be Photoshop, it could be even disordered eating, which the fitness industry is rife with. You just don't see it because people put a picture up on their things and you just don't know all of the contributing factors behind that picture. What's going on behind the scenes. And having had worked in that industry for a long time, especially being within the bodybuilding world for a time also, I just saw the disordered nature of things and the topics of conversation and the thought patterns. Now that you're kind of like where you are now mentally in terms of, it's almost like looking from the outside in. Do you see like why your previous self maybe have been so kind of like, I guess,
Wrapped up in that.
receptive of that stuff?
Because I think you're so used to being in a cycle of need to lose weight, need to go to the gym, need to try Slimming World, need to try all these things, and it just cycles through you, and it's become like, I don't know, shall we say, part of your DNA, and it's just one of these things that comes through. But now, if you look from the outside in, following people who have a much more positive outlook on life, and they're healthy and they're well-being. Maybe they're an athlete, maybe they're not. They're just kind of speakers who are doing different contexts of different things. It just starts you to think about things in a much different way and think, actually, what do I want to be on that track of going back to Slimming World and all those negative things? No, I don't, because you don't want to be in that whole, how much time in your life does that take up? But it's also thinking you're very receptive to it because you're in that mode of feeling sorry for yourself, nothing's working, oh, I'll try this, or something else feeds through, oh, somebody else has tried that, I'll try it. So it's kind of, you're very receptive to it in that low mood where things aren't going right. Whereas when you start to think differently, it's like, oh, actually, there is lots of other different affirmations out there that are better than where you were.
The unfortunate thing is with working with someone like myself, it can often feel like a little bit of a last ditch attempt, because they have exhausted all possibilities in their head. So, when people are operating from a place of, unfortunately, like desperation, you can get kind of drawn into the wrong things because of course we want that pain relief super quickly, and if somebody's promising that pain relief with minimal amount of effort, you know, of course you're going to be receptive to it because you're human and that's how marketing works. You,
Absolutely.
you're in pain, they have a solution, they have the tablet,
Mhm,
buy my stuff.
mhm,
You know, and obviously I appreciate the delicacy of this and the
mhm,
vulnerability, and this is why I'm so ever grateful for people that do wish to do agree to come on this because
mhm.
like they are sharing somebody else who maybe feels in the same place that they
The
once
same
did,
place, and what do I do? Yeah, yeah.
which so I'm really grateful of that. Where was like when was that kind of like that moment where you were just like, right, I'm going to get this sorted? Was there a particular thing going on to memory that you were just like, yeah, this isn't right. I need to do
Mm.
something.
Not a particular thing, but I guess work is a big factor with me because I travel a lot.
Mm,
Long hours, long days, not enough sleep, traveling your life through airports. So at some point it's kind of like how do you stop the train? But also I don't think there was a specific point. I just kind of thought life's kind of on a massive fast roller coaster, and how do you not put a stop to some things, but how do you put some good systems and basics in place to help you cope with some of all the different things that you go through that
mhm.
just help towards health, well-being, and just being feeling better. So I don't think there was one specific point. I think it was just a build-up over time, and it's kind of like just do it instead of kind of sitting in your own head and saying I'm not going to do anything about it. It was like just taking that plunge and doing it.
And I think as well, like obviously what your brain does is it uses experience from the past
Mm-hmm.
and it'll project it into the future. So like in many ways, what I want to do is kind of like not represent another variation of what you've done. Because if people
Mm-hmm.
are pooling me in that kind of diet camp a long time
Mm-hmm.
alongside the slimming groups or even other coaches
Mm-hmm.
that they've worked with or experience if they had, because that's the way the brain works is it just kind
Mm-hmm.
of generalizes and you know puts everything into a camp so it can understand it. So I have to make sure that listen, I want you to know that this is different. So my question, Anne-Marie, for you is like, what were your expectations coming into this? What were you thinking that I would be giving you versus what you actually got?
So far, even if I flip back a few years when we first did it, when you were in your infancy, as you call
Yeah,
it,
when I was
I kind of
shit.
had the same kind of impression of we'll have some coaching sessions, we'll talk about good nutrition, exercise, and things, but it was completely different from then to now, and gone through a bit of a journey about yourself and what you value the most in life. And there was like a number of different exercises. So I think when I started off, it was kind of like it worked the last time we had a good when we were working together. So I was kind of thinking, well, we're going to be on that same
Hmm.
roller coaster, if you know what I mean, together. But it was completely different. So completely different even from then to now. And it in a good way, because it's thinking about you do a lot of soul searching and thinking about yourself that you would never really think about if you're just wanting to lose weight. So if you got the slimming world, you don't think about what are your values, what do you value the most, what things make you tick, what's your future state look like, the future you. None of that is in any of those other things. So it's very much tailored to you and your lifestyle, and then how do you make things work with your lifestyle as well. So completely different. So I had that was my first perception of it'll be food related, it'll be exercise related, but completely different.
And I think this just goes to show like um you know the development that I made as a coach because like
Mm-hmm.
if it was just the same as what I'd
Mm-hmm.
done the last time because I didn't know any different like
Mm-hmm.
um because I didn't have that degree of self-awareness I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have that degree of life experience either, you know, so
Mm-hmm.
since I've had two children and married and had life's experiences that life
Hmm.
just throws at you.
Hmm.
So if I just kind of if we just done what we done the last time because you were like, oh, that worked the last time, it's almost like going to the slimming group. I'll not say its name, you've said it. But
Hmm.
it's almost like going back to the slimming group again, and they're just going to give you the essentially the same thing. And it'll give you that perception, right? I'm controlling myself versus
Hmm.
like actually like what I want to do is give people that freedom of choice. So it's really nice, and I thank you for like sharing that so
Hmm.
people can understand that, like, hey, you cannot do the same thing that clearly hasn't worked.
Worked. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what was like really surprising then?
So I think for me, the first bit we obviously started a bit around basics of nutrition and all the different modules that we talk about, and that's mainly to get you into a bit of a mindset and habit of things to think about when when you're building a meal or when you're cooking, because it's really straightforward. There's nothing complex about it. So that was kind of at the beginning, but then we got into various other things towards like, who do you want to be? Who are you? So starting at your early years of how old you were and what did you eat then and what did you look like then and all the different topics. But it was all about thinking about your future. What are your successes? Where do you want to be? What's your vision in life? What are you? Where do you want? What's your bigger picture? So really, in the end, it wasn't really that much about food, more about your lifestyle, but also thinking about, if you want to make a difference and you want to be something different in 10 years' time, what is it you want to do? So we did a vision board. Never have I done a vision board in my life. And I would say to you, I'd never do anything like this. This is ridiculous. But actually, it just shows all the different exercises that we do. You're focusing on your family, your friends, your health, your singing, whatever I do. It's actually on a 5 or 6 pictures, shows you exactly where you want to be and what you want to do. And I think and if I get the sentence right, where energy goes, energy flows, or the other way around. I always say it, so I always remember that sentence. And it's true, because I look at my own vision board and I kind of think, yeah, that's me, and that's where I want to go, and that's the big picture. Whereas you would never ever have that kind of conversation in a group. Shall I say, well, not say the name of them, but do you know what I mean? That's not, none of that is something you actually look at. So it's a bit more soul searching and thinking about yourself. So making you think outside the box, because I used to get the questionnaires and think, God, I can't answer these things, these are hard. But then when you read your things of saying, don't make it complicated, don't just write down what you think straight away. And it was just a really different exercises, which gets you to that picture board. And I think you talked about yours. You have it on your phone. I have it as a screensaver at work. So it's always there and visual in terms of, am I still true to myself of the things that I want to do on that vision board?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
I love that. Being true to yourself and like you've said, life, um, many times throughout this is like what is important in life and you know, ultimately helping these people. And you said it there, like almost right,
Mm-hmm.
where focus goes, energy flows.
That's
Um,
funny.
and what is a desperate diet, a yo-yo diet, an emotional eater, a binge eater, whatever kind of they want to kind of refer themselves as, where is their focus constantly at?
Mm-hmm. Food.
Food.
Food, and how many calories do I need to count, or how many sins do I have to not have today? And it's kind of like, no, that's not important in life. Because when you're in that negative trend and you're trying to do something, and a lot of people are, you're consumed by it. But when you go through all the different exercises with you, it's kind of like, why do I want to sit and count how many sins I've got in what I'm eating? Why do I want to write it in a book? Why do I want to not have something to eat because I can't have it?
Mhm.
And I think the other thing that was interesting in the journey was that towards and away language. So it was interesting reading some of the sentences that I still got wrong. However, it's a learning thing, because it's just you say things in a certain way, and then when you read them back, you go, "That's really in a, it's not. That's really in a negative way." So that was the eye-opening questionnaire that I thought I never really thought of it until you started like till you tweak a certain word which makes something sound toward and rather than a way. I can't explain it in a good way, but that was an eye-opener. But it's just I don't want to spend my life counting calories or go on the phone and saying, let's put however many foods in here to count your calories in the app. Why would you want to do that anymore?
And I do want to talk a little bit about food because
Yeah.
obviously, like, um, reconnecting you with your body, with food again, not seeing food as like this good, bad, black, white, right, wrong,
Yeah.
and having a what I would call like a positive, neutral relationship with
Mhm.
food, and us primarily focusing not necessarily on what I call the X's and O's, which is like, eat vegetables, eat
Mhm.
protein, eat like,
Mhm.
this, that, and
Mhm.
the other. This is healthy. This is
Mhm.
unhealthy. Because
Yeah.
like, you are a grown woman and it would be insulting your intelligence to kind of assume
Mhm.
you did not know. And this is what so many people say is, I know what I need to do. Yet,
But some, and I think if you think about that, some people say they know what they need to do, but actually you don't in a real world because you get, when you talk, you kind of give that the basics, even that basic nutrition guide, 2 pages, which is fantastic, telling you, portion sizes and stuff. You might think you know, but until you kind of get yourself into a way of thinking what things are, I don't like saying good or bad, but what things are better for you is kind of is a way of thinking. And we all think, I probably thought, oh yeah, I know exactly how much protein I should have. I should eat vegetables, etc. But sometimes you just need that reaffirmation of things that are working. And I think a lot of the things we talked about hydration, we talked about sleep, we talked about movement, we talked about all the different nutrients and what they could be. And a lot of people don't know that. Yes, you hear things, you hear, oh yeah, that's a saturated fat, that's a but what does it actually mean to you? If you know what I mean? And some of these things are just good from an education point of view. So you understand it, you can ask questions around it. Do you need to know it forever? No, but is it there and it's something you know, then it's good, but you don't know all of these you think you know all of these things, but they're in the periphery, they're not
yeah.
in detail, if you know what I mean.
And I think as well, obviously, like there is that aspect of health, which like I like to because of
Mhm.
my background as an evidence-based nutritionist. I want people to be equipped with facts so
Mhm.
that they feel empowered if they are challenged, because a lot of the people that I help have low confidence, and that confidence
Mhm.
can quite easily be shaken when, and it can be somebody just off the street or a friend who just asks or probes about what you were doing, and because you're in this
Mhm.
low state of confidence, and I'm in many ways like, you don't have to explain yourself these days. It's your diet, it's your which are connected and aligned with what you want from life,
Mhm.
um the vision that you've created. And I think this is one of the most important things about coaching as well, is like and I think even the word coaching, everyone's a bloody coach these days, but they're not coaching. Coaching is about working with the person in their world, with their in their language, um, with their belief systems.
Mhm.
And I, as a coach, hopefully help facilitate like a change within the individual that they almost do themselves. I'm just kind of there in just to help
Mhm.
subtly nudge rather than say, do this, do this, do this. That's not coaching in my eyes. Was
No.
that like a small expectation coming into this? Because I know what I ask all clients usually throughout the process. I'm like, what did you expect? And they were just like, yeah, I just expected another diet. I just expected
Mhm.
like rules, a list, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's some of that is sometimes what you do think, and that. And that's what I said, I think, at the beginning. I was kind of like, we're just going to talk about food and do these things and have a good exercise regime and blah, blah, blah. And it's so much more than that. And even, but it is important. And I think it's important to get that basic nutrition right. So it just helps you on that healthy journey. Because
Mm.
if you don't get into the mindset and you still think about the things in the way you did, you don't move the needle forward. And for me, it was all about I'm thinking differently. So I tell you the one thing that I really enjoyed was the intuitive eating audio book,
Yeah.
and that had quite a lot of eye-opening listening and just kind of some things that just resonate with you. And I think that for me was one of the turning points of some of the things that you think, God, I think I've been thinking like that for however long and why. And it was just a really interesting way of looking at food and how you look at yourself from when you were little to where you are today. And it's just really interesting, but it's also connects to the basics that were started off at the beginning.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like we always say to people and whomever I'm working with is like, listen, every diet out there is going to give you what your um kind of survival brain wants, which is like, do this, this will happen. It wants guarantees, but that isn't real. That's your brain wanting safety and security because
Mhm,
that's what it's designed to do. That's why we call it the survival brain.
mhm,
But like, unfortunately, we have the more conscious brain that wants
mhm,
freedom and autonomy. So these two it can be a bit of a battle of wills.
mhm,
So these two things must run parallel and aligned with each other. So working with Anne Marie and every other individual that I do work with, their diet is your diet is ultimately yours or theirs.
mhm,
You know, like it's about you being in the driver's seat. It's about you having choice for once in your life, not being told what to do, when to do it, like you're a bloody adult. Um,
absolutely.
you know, and
It's
it's
not you
like,
thinking I've got to follow this sheet
yeah.
to the letter.
And this is the thing, like
Yeah.
I don't do before and after pictures. I actually discourage weighing in and doing all that because I'm like, if you don't want to be a little desperate dieter, stop doing what desperate dieters do. And I would
Mhm,
rather somebody, a
mhm,
good bloody client, absorb 5, 10, 15 podcasts
mhm,
and had a bit of back and forward with us, and we create like a bit of a human connection
yeah.
because this is all about a relationship and trust. Because
Mhm,
I fully appreciate you putting time, effort, and money into this process, and I
mhm,
am hugely respectful of that. Um, you know, so when it comes to like maybe the the experiences that you have or
mhm,
had and will continue to have,
mhm,
your mindset, would you say, is different to like maybe what the dieter's mindset would have been like in terms of
mhm.
pass, fail, good, bad, right, wrong? What would you say your like internal wiring is now in relation to this entire journey?
So I think I'm not in that mindset of I have to count anything. I'm kind of like not interested in the likes of a slimming world or whatever that may be. I'm wired in the bigger picture of where I want to be, what I want to do. And it's kind of, and it isn't all about food when you think about it. Yes, it plays a part food, nutrition, sleep, hydration, movement, and not thinking I've got to slog myself in the gym for hours. Try something different, doing new things. Don't just do the same old, same old. You kind of think, I've got to do 10,000 steps. And we had this conversation, I think, in the early thing of like, oh God, because I'm so sedentary from a work perspective, I need to do something. And I used to think we've got to get to so many steps. And then you kind of got to the zone of I'm not getting to 10,000 steps a day. Now it's getting to be an issue. Now I don't even look at the step count a day. I get out and I move every day. I'm out for a walk at lunchtime. So I've got into these good habits of doing something, whether that's a walk. Yes, I still go to the gym or I go swimming or I do something that's different because I kind of doing the same old's not doing anything. But movement is a key thing. And then because you're so sedentary, and if I'm traveling a lot and then I'm in a lot of airplanes, movement is key. So for me, it's kind of it's all of it encompassing. So there's the food and the basics. It's the all the different things we've talked about, but it's the bigger picture of where do you want to be. Food becomes the byproduct, and weight loss becomes the byproduct, because once you're healthy and you feel healthy in your own skin, things start to make a difference. And I think for me, we talked about it just before Christmas where we've had some challenges at work. I would have handled it probably a lot differently in terms of being in that zone of emotional eating and doing stupid things and just feeling sorry for myself, where actually I'm like, okay, I've got to be practical. This is how I'm going to have to deal with things in a bit more of a structured way, which has helped.
I think,
It's
yeah,
a long way around the answer,
yeah.
but
And I think, listen, like, you had a lot of stuff going on with work before the Christmas period. We are recording this now in January, just for context. And then you were ill for like several weeks.
yeah.
And this is the thing with the dieters mentality, this good bad stuff is like, you know, people are expecting just they want a clear run. And obviously a lot of people wait till January and they're like, right,
Right, I need to
everything will
start.
be out the way, all of the food will be gone. Um, I'll be good. Whereas like what we've taught you is the ability to regulate your emotions more appropriately, and not using food to cope with them. And having some like good kind of baseline staples in play, not having that underlying diet as kind of agenda there, um, and seeing like more of the big picture rather than operating in these very short like chunks of time where it's like, oh, it's been a bad day, it's been a bad week, it's been a bad like,
Anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll start again on Monday, I'll
Yeah.
start in January, and things
With
like
me,
that.
it doesn't matter when you start, because this journey is a journey.
Yeah.
It's not like I got to start in January because I get rid of all the chocolate. I've still got mountains of chocolate from Christmas, but it's kind of there. Yeah, it's there. Normally in the past you hide it in the garage or something, so you don't want to eat it. But no, it's there. Don't hide things out your cupboard, because then you want it more. But for me, it's kind of I would have been in that zone of, oh God, I'm just going to eat rubbish. I'm just going to not look after myself. But it also opened my eyes for all the things we talked about, in that running up to Christmas with everything that was going on, work and everything, you get to a burnout stage as well. And then when you get to a break, everything just falls apart and you become ill. And it kind of also has flipped a switch a little bit into the new year of, I'm not going to do that anymore. Work hours and hours upon end, not having a life, travel stupid o'clock in the morning, do what's right for yourself. Make sure you're a priority rather than kind of think, no, I'll do what's right for the business. And I think, no, I'm going to do what's right for me, because I don't want to get to the summer holidays or another holiday and be ill. And you kind of think, Christmas is normally a longer period when everybody's off as well. So it also flipped a switch into me thinking, actually, yes, I have been looking after myself and all the good things, but actually at some point you kind of think, no, things need to change to make sure that you don't get to that stage again.
Yeah. And it's kind of that, do you live to work or work to live?
Live, yeah, absolutely.
I think, you know, when people come on board with me and we start working together, we work together for a period of time, like, a good 6 months, because like what we're able to do is really kind of you're able to live a life. You're able to go through periods of stress, strain, struggle, all of the things that usually you would go through. However, the ability for us to work and help you understand and regulate and have better mechanisms for coping and having just that general self-awareness, um, learning about your body again, reconnecting with food, um, and I always say to people like, especially, I don't know how long somebody's been dieting and the extremes that they've went through and what that's done in the kind of maybe relative short term. But like what I do know is that any weight loss that is occurred with like a horrendous relationship with food as the foundations inevitably will just end up like the last thing, and people will
Mhm.
generally diet themselves into a heavier place physically, a worse place physically, but
Mhm.
also metabolically, um, emotionally, all of that sort of thing. Um,
Mhm.
so foundational wise, like where would you say your relationship with food is right now?
A lot better. Nothing's off the menu, which is nice because you'd normally go somewhere, well, can't have that tonight. But I also just think I make better choices, I think's the word as well. And it's kind of, if I want a slice of cake when we go out for a coffee with the girls, have a slice of cake. Don't sit there and go, I'm not having a cup of coffee because a cup of cake, a slice of cake today because I can't have one. Nothing's off the menu. So it's kind of like but you also, you've got a good understanding of the basics, and then you start to regulate a little bit and start thinking, actually, if I make a couple of changes and tweaks, that's more healthier in an option, then that's good. So my relationship with food is I'm not in that zone of I can't eat anything now. It's kind of like if you want something, have it. Because then yeah, otherwise you sit there and think for the next hour, why didn't I have that piece of cake or why didn't I have that? But not in like, let's have a whole cake
Yeah.
or let's have a massive bar of chocolate in the whole 10 minutes. You might just have two squares of something. So it's kind of, it's there. You're not hiding it in a cupboard. You're not hiding it in the garage. It's there. And I'm not kind of, we're not having that conversation. I guess Stephen and I now at the very beginning, he's going, well, you can't have that. I says, I'm not getting into this conversation of I can't have, etc. If I want to have something, I have it. So we're into that conversation now of what would you like for tea, not what can't you have today.
Yeah.
So we're in a different space, if you know what I mean, in terms of just, yeah, it's not, I'm not making it a thing anymore.
And this is the thing with food, like it is, yes, absolutely functional. It helps support many processes within the
Mhm.
body and health and energy, but also we don't just eat food. It's like we don't just have sex for reproduction.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
we do things for pleasure.
Mhm.
So having a good, strong, positive relationship with it
Mhm.
is hugely important. The ability to have a piece of cake and understand, like, the maybe the changes that you might have in appetite regulation, and
Mhm.
kind
Mhm.
of seeing this as more of a constant continuum that flows rather than this like, oh man, I've ruined things, I've ruined progress.
Yeah, oh, I've had too many calories today. Tomorrow
Yeah,
I'm only allowed X.
yeah, I'm going to restrict, I'm going to
Yeah.
compensate in other ways. Um, and as we said, this is just a kind of, because relative to the
Mhm.
15 years, the kind of, this has been a fairly short term
Mhm.
like thing thus far, but that's what I really want to kind of illustrate is like we have to adopt an attitude that is going to see you through for
Mhm.
the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have just been another diet and stint on to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the other thing I think if I flip back to that intuitive eating book, it was all of kind of like honoring your hunger, feeling the fullness. So when you're full, don't just think, oh, there's loads on my plate. I still need to eat it all. And then you get into that food coma at the end and think, oh, I wish I hadn't eaten that. Now I'm in a stage of finished. I'm not hungry. If I'm eating a meal, like go out last week, for instance, and Stephen says, "Are you finished?" And I went, "Mm-hmm." I says, "I'm not. That's it. I'm full." And then I did. If it was a pizza or whatever, he has it the next day for his lunch. But just generally for me, it's kind of like now, it's not like I've got to eat everything on my plate. It's more like, right, okay, I'm full, and it's okay to leave something. Whereas in the past, I was kind of think, oh, I'll just kind of eat it, and then I'm like, oh, but now it's like, well, I'm full, so I'm happy, I'm content, don't need to have any more.
Brilliant. Couple of questions to kind of to wrap up in terms of like what are your feelings kind of in regards to your long-term future in relation to the health, the happiness, and all of that?
I think for me now, the self-confidence is back. I'm not thinking about what I look like, what clothes I should buy. I had a big stigma, I think, at the beginning about I don't want to buy bigger clothes. Actually, buy the things that make you feel comfortable and you look nice in them. Stop making it an issue. But for me, it's kind of, there's that vision. I'm looking at it on my screen. There's that vision board of where you want to be. Keep that in mind. You know, your things that you want to do in the future, whether that's my coffee shop that I want to open that I've always talked about, you know, going on nice holidays, doing the singing things, spending time with family and friends. Make more time for that. That's what life's all about. Life's for living. It's not for, you know, sitting there thinking, oh, I've got to go to work. And like you say, you're not living to work. Life's for living, and make some changes for your life so you're there for the future and you do the things you want to do. But don't make food the enemy, I think's the word. I think make food part of what you're doing, but just be mindful of that nutritional and maybe some things that you need to tweak just to make that a better improvement. But don't, and for me, it's not thinking I need to go, but I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to go back anyway on that journey I've been on, because that's not where I want to be. The mindset's in that shift of moving forward. So, yeah.
Moving forward, I love that. And, you know, the fact is, like you said there, making nutrition and making food part of the journey, because I know so many people that have unfortunately missed out and that are continuing to miss out on so much of life's gifts because it's consumed with the food, with the worry, with the anxiety, with the chronic exercise. You know, all of these sorts of things keep people stuck in that rut for the longest of time. What would you say, you know, somebody listening is sat there thinking, you know what, like that is me, and what would you encourage them to do?
So if that's you, I'd encourage you to pick up the phone, send a text, send an email, however you want to get in touch with Ian. Just do it. Don't wait for a certain point in time, whether that's January for your New Year's resolution. Just do it. And it makes such an improvement on your life. And it's a great experience. So, you know, when I'm in a fast-paced role for work, running around the world, I still made the time to do what I'm doing with Ian. And he helped me in many ways to how to deal with things when you travel. So a lot of people who are working and traveling these days are listening. He's also a good coach there in terms of putting up some good things to think about when you're traveling to help you as well, especially if you're on a lot of flights, etc. But for me, pick up the phone, do it now. Don't waste any more time.
And I think that's it. I say, listen, sometimes the worst time is the best time. I've had people, funnily enough, just before Christmas start with me, and that for me just sets the tone of intention that, right, I'm going to do this. I appreciate life is challenging. I've got things going on, but I'm going to learn to manage that. Because if it's all smooth and sailing and people are like, everything's great, I'm like, well, why am I here? So yes, please do reach out. I will, as I said earlier, leave in the show notes all of those sorts of things. Please, with the podcast, with YouTube, wherever you are absorbing this, I would appreciate a share, a like, a comment, a subscription, whatever you do on that piece of hardware, software, do the thing. But yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you, Anne-Marie. It's honestly been an absolute pleasure seeing you grow, see you overcome all of the challenges and ultimately come out the other side where you are right now.
Thank you to you. It's been a great journey and it will continue.